Hey, everybody, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. And this time around, we're going to talk about manipulation. It's going to be fun. It's going to tie in with the Bible. It's all going to work. I read this book recently called Getting to Yes. I don't remember what comes after the colon. There's a bunch more title after that, as is the case with all of these books now. But my buddy Destin recommended it to me, and then we talked about it on our podcast that we do. It's called No Dumb Questions. And this book got through the armor, my friends. There was stuff here that I was like, oh, that's intuitive for dealing with people, negotiating stuff relationally, or even in a business setting. Not for working people over and getting what you want, but for through the front door negotiation where you just declare to the other person, here's what I'm going for, and then you ask them, what are they going for? And you talk until you totally understand it, and then you negotiate on principles instead of negotiating on positions. But one of the things that I loved the most about the book were the sections where they talked about what happens when it's not going well, when you don't have an honest conversational partner or negotiating partner on the other side of the table from you. And so in these sections on what to do in the face of bad faith negotiation, the theme was very consistent. They simply recommend when someone is engaged in dishonesty and manipulation, bad faith negotiation, just point out exactly what they're doing and say it back to them. So, for example, in the book, they talked about the good cop, bad cop negotiating thing. It's one of you against two of them, and the one's like, we can do this, this, and this. And then the other one's like, look, I don't know what my partner's talking about. I think we can make this work this way or that way. They said the thing to do in the face of this obvious manipulation is just simply to say, I can tell the two of you are not on the same page. I'm not willing to have two separate negotiations over one thing. I'm going to give you some time to get back on the same page. And if you're able to, we could revisit this discussion tomorrow. Boom, it's disarmed. You weren't a jerk. You just simply called out the nonsensical, dishonest, manipulative game. And I tell you what, this is a revelation. It's not just in the skeezy used car dealership office where this is effective, but this is effective for not getting dirty in conversations that otherwise could make you feel all dirty and gross. And that's what manipulation does. If you haven't figured it out, I'm not a fan of the manipulation thing. It's a game. A lot of people use it. I'm ashamed of the times that I have, and I really dislike it when people do it to me. But again, the best counter to this thing I have ever heard of or seen in practice is gently and accurately point out exactly what the manipulator is doing, and they will either be like, okay, yeah, you got me, let's just figure this thing out, or more likely, their whole world will collapse because manipulation is how they get things, and they will become very erratically angry with you, and then you just need to be able to hold your ground and be like, look, the things are what the things are. If you're mad, that doesn't change the negotiation. Matthew chapter 22 has all of the hallmarks of all of this as this unholy union between the Pharisees and the Herodians, people who believe completely different things, as this unholy union comes together to try to trap Jesus in a way that wasn't possible from just one side of the political aisle, with the Pharisees pulling the trigger. So now they come at him together, and in Matthew 22, verse 15, I got my Bible at a weird angle. It's hard to read. Just a second. There we go. It says, the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. So they sent their disciples, not the Pharisees themselves this time around, but like Pharisees in training, like a young Saul who became Paul might have been one of the people who were involved in this little trick. They send the younglings out, so it's more like, we know you are nice and good and smart, and we're so naive and simple. Could you just help us get an answer to this difficult question, oh good teacher? So this is very, very clever what they're doing, and no doubt the Pharisees themselves scripted all of this question for their younglings, their Padawans, to take with them. But interestingly, they send them along with the Herodians, the people who wanted to see the client king state of Judea restored and Herod put back in power, and they come with this just syrupy, saccharine, gross, manipulative question. Teacher, they said, we know you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. So tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Now, this is the part where you're at a fork in the road in the negotiation. You know dang well this is a manipulation. You know dang well this is a sham. So what do? Continue to play along and let them get the sound bites they need to destroy you, or just try to placate the manipulators so that maybe now they'll finally get the thing they want and they'll go away and stop with this nonsense? Like, maybe if you just give the manipulative person or group one more concession, maybe now they'll finally be like, that's the last time I ever need to manipulate. I got the things I wanted. There's no advantage to me personally to continuing to be a dishonest manipulator who operates in bad faith. I got what I wanted. Now it's time for me to become a good faith person. You hear the absurdity in what I'm saying. If you keep giving manipulators what they want when they manipulate, why would they ever stop manipulating? It's how they get what they want. Well, Jesus isn't going to enable this stuff. He's going to do the thing you do when manipulation happens, which is go right at it. Now, as God in the flesh, he felt licensed to do so in a way that is very, very direct, perhaps more direct than some of us might be comfortable with in our own dealings. But here's what he says, verse 18. But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, so he recognizes the manipulation, and that's going to inform what he says next, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me?" Look what he did in the very first sentence. They made a move. It wasn't honest in any way. It's bad faith negotiation. It's a manipulation. He sees it, knows what they're doing. Step 2, he points a finger directly at it and says it. You're not asking me a question about coins. You don't care about taxes. That's not what this is, younglings. That's not what this is, Herodians. You're trying to trap me. I see what you're doing. How does it make you feel when you, in your life, have tried to play the manipulation game? Because I've tried it. I know how it feels to be on the other side of this equation. I understand I've framed up most of this episode like, oh, manipulators are so bad, and I'm so much better than that. I don't do those things. Oh, I've tried it. I'm ashamed of it, but I've tried it. And when it's worked in the past, you come away feeling dirty, like, oh, this is ill-gotten gain. But you know what feels even worse? When someone on the spot in front of everybody calls you out. Now imagine being like a 16, 18-year-old kid. You're from a very fancy family. They have fancy things, and they get you fancy pants that you can wear to go to your fancy Pharisee camp, and you're better than all of your peers and everything, and you're used to everything working out just goldenly for you, and you're feeling absolutely spectacular because the Pharisees picked you for this very important job. They told you it was important and that you're special, and you get to go up and confront the guy who all the buzz is happening about. And you nail your lines. You say it perfectly, and everyone's like, my goodness, that special golden young man is so special and golden. Look at how brave he is and how well he asked that question. That's really neat. Let's see what Jesus has to say. And then Jesus is like, you're trying to trap me and you're a hypocrite. Ow! What would this have done to your golden, super special, raised on money, silver spoon view of yourself? I mean, it's withering, and it's withering because these Padawans were in league with the Pharisees. They knew exactly what they were doing. The Herodians knew exactly what they were doing, and they got called out for it in a way that just absolutely makes me giggle. So then Jesus says, all right, show me the coin used for paying the tax. And they brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose portrait is this and whose inscription? And we're going to talk about coins and money and all of this here next time around. But I want to wring the last drop out of this little manipulation, negotiation, call it out social dynamic before we get into the rest of Jesus' answer. Did you catch that little detail that further drives home the point that they are hypocrites and he's not? They come to him disingenuously. He says, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? So he calls out exactly what they're doing. Then he says, show me the coin used for paying the tax. Why does he need them to show him the coin used for paying the tax? Oh, it's because he doesn't have one. They have one. He knows dang well that the Pharisee Padawans and that the Herodians, they're going to have pockets jingling with cash. But Jesus doesn't, because he gave all of his to Judas. That's who's carrying around Jesus' money. That's what Jesus thinks of your stupid taxes and your money and your coins and all of this game. He is running a totally different equation than anybody else in this story. And look, people need money for goods and services. I get it. I'm not anti-money. I think it's a good thing that you have jobs and that you get paid and that you save and that you do things with money and that even from time to time you do fun things with money. That's great. It's none of my business. It's awesome. That's how economies work and that's how life works. But Jesus was different. He was not just an exaggerated, slightly better version of us. He's here to do a completely different thing. And he just doesn't need to be dragging around pictures of people who claim to be deities in his pocket to achieve that. But I'll tell you who definitely has those coins in their pocket. The people who within a couple of years, give or take, depending on how you date it based on the account of Josephus, threw a gigantic fit and threatened to commit mass ritual suicide at the palace of Caesarea in front of Pontius Pilate because they simply could not stand to have banners or shields that showed the image of Caesar anywhere within visual distance of their sacred temple. That is blasphemous idolatry. And so they absolutely went nuclear on Pontius Pilate, their local governor, demanding that he take those things down, to the point that they literally all walked to his palace in Caesarea and were prepared to cut themselves to death in front of him to make a show of how much they could not stand that idolatry. Then, depending on how you date it, give or take a few weeks or months away, Jesus is like, hey, do any of you religious leaders here in the temple complex have any of those idolatrous coins that have a picture of a god, deity, emperor in your pocket? Oh, you do? Cool. Could you hand me one of those? He's pointing out that they're hypocrites simply by doing this. And so many in the original audience would have remembered their stance on the issues of the shields or the banners early in the reign of Pontius Pilate. And they would have been like, hey, wait a second. These guys are totally fine with idolatry when they can spend the idolatry to get things that they want. They're against the idolatry when they can throw a gigantic fit and score political points with it. Isn't that convenient? And Jesus communicated all of that in the face of being outnumbered with a premeditated public ambush. He completely, masterfully defeated their manipulation right through the front door and subtly this easily. You hypocrites, while you're trying to trap me, show me the coin used for paying a tax. And sure enough, they had one in their pocket and they handed it right to him. How about that? I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.